It's heavy. It's glass.
That's beautiful.
But congratulations.
Thank you. I'm going to be careful about that. Thank you very much. Thank you. Can we do that? Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Maybe I will? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. What an honor to be here tonight. Dr. Wang, the Honorable Barbara Franklin, Ambassador Roy, Ambassador Sasser, Ambassador Pereira, Ambassador Subrinsky, Ambassador Ong Lin, Deputy Chief of Mission Lee, Commissioner Mok, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the U.S. China Business Council, it's a great honor to accept this award. I'm especially grateful to Wang Qi, who's played a facilitating role in U.S. China relations for many decades. And I'm also extremely grateful to Ambassador Roy, who I served under with enormous pleasure from 1993 to 1995 at the U.S. Embassy in Beijing, more than 25 years ago. Both Dr. Wang and Ambassador Roy are role models for me. And I bet that they're role models for you, too. So maybe we could give them a round of applause. Truly, they are the ones that should be celebrated and awarded for their lifetimes of achievement in U.S.-China relations. Nonetheless, I am pleased that tonight the U.S.-China Business Council is recognized for its contributions to the overall U.S.-China relationship over the last 46 years. In my view, there is no doubt that the USCBC, and more importantly, the companies that make up the USCBC, have contributed greatly to peace and understanding between our two great countries. But I must say that my very positive view on the role of business in the bilateral relationship is not uncontested. It is often said that business has been the ballast of the bilateral relationship for many years. But in a recent conversation that I had with a senior Trump administration official, somebody who I respect very much, I received a quite different interpretation of the ballast metaphor, and it really made me think. I was told that while business may be the ballast in the bilateral relationship, there is currently too much ballast, and that the ship has become too heavy, reducing maneuverability and speed. So in response to my interlocutor, I had to agree that it is perfectly fine to challenge conventional wisdom and to interrogate our assumptions. And I think it is fair game to question the role of business in the bilateral relationship. So in response to his challenge, I engaged in a little bit of research on ballast. What the heck is ballast anyway? How is it used? Exactly how much ballast is good or bad for a vessel? What I learned from my research is that the ballast tanks on an ocean-going vessel are located at the lowermost regions of the ship, under the engine room. And ballasting, now that's a verb, is an art form that is important for the ship's safety. It's elemental to the ship's safety. The ballast on a ship must be carefully managed depending on the load and the overall weight of the vessel and the cargo, as well as the conditions of the sea. Ballast is increased or decreased to improve stability, balance, and trim. And as my interlocutor indicated, in calm seas, you can indeed decrease the ballast, which does increase speed and maneuverability. But when a ship is in troubled waters, ladies and gentlemen, the age-old wisdom of the mariner tells us that we must increase ballast to improve the stability of the ship and allow the captain to weather the storm or sail the ship into calmer, safer seas. So I don't think I have to tell you today that these are stormy seas for the U.S.-China relationship. And so if business is the ballast of the relationship, then given the stormy weather out there, now is the time to increase ballast, to maximize stability, maintain forward progress, and avert possible disaster. So as the ballast in the relationship, the role of business is more important than it's ever been before in ensuring that the world's two largest trading nations find a way to manage differences and maintain stability. We need more bilateral trade, and we need more bilateral investment. Both governments have a responsibility to ensure that the other side is offered national treatment and rule of law. At the risk of mixing metaphors, both governments have an obligation to ensure that the rules of the game are effectively and fairly enforced. We need a level playing ground. Both sides have a responsibility to live up to their obligations freely undertaken when they joined the World Trade Organization. And both governments should take steps to calm the troubled waters. From my perspective, the most important reason we need to get this right is this. Currently, 2.4 million Americans work on U.S.-China trade or investment, approximately 1 million in U.S. exports to China, 1 million in import-related industries, and about 400,000 American citizens currently employed at Chinese-invested companies in the United States. This is approximately the entire working populations of either Chicago or Houston, the third and fourth largest cities in the United States. And that's a lot of jobs. Each of these jobs is a good reason to defend the bilateral economic relationship. Moreover, it is reasonable to expect that China will continue to grow rapidly and indeed be one of the major sources of economic growth for at least the next 10 years. Bloomberg estimates that China will produce about between 30 and 33% of global growth in this decade. And it is estimated that over the next 10 years, China's contribution to global GDP growth may exceed that of Europe, Japan, and the United States combined. Therefore, American companies want to and need to be in China. They are not going to leave China. And I hope that Chinese companies will not leave the U.S., and indeed that we are able to welcome many more Chinese companies in the United States to provide jobs, high-paying jobs, to American citizens. Yet another reason why bilateral economic integration is good is that there are more than two players in this game. You cannot decouple if you are not a couple. And there are lots of other players in the regional and global economy. China has free trade agreements with some 15 countries and investment agreements with more than 100. Further, China is liberalizing its economy and integrating globally at a very rapid pace. And if American companies are not present in China, others will gladly and profitably take their place at our expense. Indeed, I find it quite ironic, or in an ironic third-party validation of the U.S.-China bilateral trade negotiations. This year, the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index promoted China 15 points from 46th best country for the ease of doing business to number 31 globally. That's a remarkable achievement. Congratulations. That's excellent news. But I'm afraid that American companies are not benefiting from the improved business environment due to tariffs and counter-tariffs. But despite the headwinds, 97% of the companies in the U.S. China Business Council reported that they were profitable in China in a recent survey. Our members have indeed found great success in doing business in China and selling to Chinese customers. And we want to do more. But we want a level playing field, and we are confident that we can do even better if given the chance. So I suspect that my very well-informed interlocutor within America's security establishment would acknowledge the positive benefits of business engagement, which I just laid out in front of you. I'm sure he would agree. But then he would rush to note his important and legitimate national security concerns. And most likely, he would opine on the challenges to freedom of navigation in the South China Sea, hacking into American computer systems, the implications of China's intelligence law, and the unsettling underpinnings of China's policy of civil-military fusion. He would also probably point out real problems in Hong Kong, human rights, Xinjiang, and Taiwan. And I have to admit that these are serious challenges that should be confronted head-on. They cannot be covered up, they cannot be ignored, they must be addressed and managed, if not resolved. But I hope that my interlocutor would not find it too churlish of me if I noted that none of those issues that I just raised, economic, geostrategic, and domestic to China issues, are inherently bilateral. Further, to approach all of these issues from an excessively bilateral perspective is neither effective or efficient. Indeed, we are paying a very high price for our overemphasis on bilateral negotiations with China in the short term. I worry a lot about the short-term costs of our policies on American farmers, workers, and ranchers. But I'll be honest with you, I worry much more about the longer-term costs of our policy. So let me be clear. America's greatest assets are our networks of alliances, the multilateral institutions that our parents or our grandparents endowed us with and bequeathed to us, and underlying both of them are normative values of freedom, liberty, respect, fair play, and justice for all. The role of the U.S. China Business Council is to advocate for American business in China. But in doing that, we are bringing into full expression the values that underline our operations everywhere in the world. Of course, in full compliance with all local laws and regulations. So yes, today, the bilateral ship is caught in what could be called the stormy sea of Thucydides, in which a rising power is challenging a status quo power. These are dangerous times. The sea is truly treacherous. And let's be honest, there's no guarantee that we will reach the port safely. But basic seamanship over the course of millennia tells us that we must increase the ballast in stormy seas. And now is a time to do that. Now is a time for business to demonstrate that the relationship can be made more fair, more just, and more reciprocal so that we can all benefit from a more stable U.S.-China relationship. The role of the U.S. China Business Council in this era has never been more important. And I guarantee you that we will earnestly, vigorously, and forthrightly pursue the policies that are in the long-term national interest of the United States of America on behalf of American companies, American workers, American farmers, and American ranchers. Thankfully, the long-term interests of the United States and China are both aligned. We both share a very small planet, and we face many common global challenges. So for the good of our children and our grandchildren, I hope both sides can do a better job of managing this relationship and to calm the troubled waters. American business is here to help to reach an accommodation in accordance with global norms and in the long-term national interests of both of our governments and our countries. This is a positive-sum game. There has never been a greater positive-sum game. We believe in this relationship, and we will work hard to make it better. Despite the naysayers, the last 40 years of the bilateral relationship has actually been pretty good. Not perfect, but both sides have clearly benefited. Equally important, or more important, we recognize the current challenges, and I assure you that business will play our appropriate role in helping to manage those challenges. We know that we must work very hard if we are to maintain the gains of the past and to ensure that the next 40 years of the bilateral relationship is yet better. The U.S. China Business Council is pleased to work with all individuals or like-minded organizations to help to shape the world's most important bilateral relationship and bring this ship safely into port, despite the stormy seas. Thank you.